Thank you very much, and I will be happy to take questions at this point in time. And I'm going to move down off the stage. All right, this is a very high-tech. Somebody want to show me how to turn this thing on? They teach me how to do everything. Okay. Well, there you go, Irene. All right, Kim, what do you got?
Sir, Kim Dozier, AP. I'll let you get over the technical difficulties. Would love you to address the blending of the 3 skeins of SOF in Afghanistan under Tony Thomas that's supposed to happen this summer, and the talks or the blue sky discussions about where the war goes from there in terms of special operations taking the lead, how it evolves.
Yeah, I'll take the first question, and for the broader audience, Kim's talking about bringing what we call the 3 tribes of SOF together. For those of you that have spent any time in the area, you know, within Afghanistan, as the years progressed, we kind of broke into functional lines, if you will, on how we, within SOF, fought the fight. We had the NATO SOF folks doing a magnificent job. They are currently over there building provincial response companies, doing a terrific job there. You had the Special Forces and the SEALs in what we call SIFSOC-A, conducting the village stability operations and building the Afghan local police. And then you had another element of SOF that was doing primarily kinetic operations to kind of buy down the extremist threat, take care of the safe havens. Several years ago, we looked at how we could best pull the 3 tribes, as we became known, together so that we could increase the effectiveness. But frankly, by that time, we had already become kind of so aligned along those functional lines, it was hard to pull them together. In my discussions with the leadership over at ISAF, we think now is the time to bring those 3 tribes back together. The President has made the decision, of course, to draw down to 68,000 U.S. soldiers by October of this year, by the end of September. And therefore, we feel we've got to become more, not only effective, but more efficient in how we do it from a SOF standpoint. So the intent is to establish a SOF headquarters that will bring those 3 tribes together and again, hopefully improve our collaboration and our effectiveness on the battlefield. As far as anything beyond that, we're exploring a lot of options. As you know, 68K becomes the mark on the wall right now. We're trying to figure out, again, how best to align our SOF forces with the conventional forces as we get to that 68K point. But frankly, no decisions have been made beyond that. So right now, we're really just in the planning stages and looking at a number of different options.
Just a quick follow. Could you see a time when a special operations officer took the IJC 3-star job?
I think that remains to be seen. I think whoever takes the IJC job, it is really going to be a function of how they pull, again, the conventional and the SOF forces together to achieve more effectiveness in light of the reduced number of forces on the ground. So could I see that time? Absolutely, I could see that time. But if it doesn't happen, I don't think it's going to affect our overall effectiveness on the battlefield. Yes, sir.
General Vaught. A comment and then a question. Since the time when your wonderful team went and drug bin Laden out and got rid of him, and more recently when you went down and rescued the group in Somalia, or wherever the hell they were, the media has been splashing all of this all over the media. And I flat don't understand that. Now, back when my special operators went and extracted Saddam from the hole, we didn't say one damn word about it. We turned him over to the local commander and told him to claim that his forces brought him out of the hole, and he did so. And we just faded away and kept our mouths shut. Now, I'm going to tell you, one of these days, if you keep publishing how you do this, the other guy's going to be there ready for you. And you're going to fly in, and he's going to shoot down every damn helicopter and kill every one of your SEALs. Now, watch it happen. Mark my words. Get the hell out of the media. Your comment.
General Vaught, I'm not sure how I follow that up. Other than to say one of the reasons I became a Navy SEAL was that my sister was dating a Green Beret. It's a little known secret. And the Green Beret actually convinced me to become a Navy SEAL, but the reason I was so infatuated was because I had seen this movie starring John Wayne called The Green Beret. So the fact of the matter is, there have always been portrayals of SOF out in the mainstream media. We are in an environment today where we can't get away from it. It is not something that we actively pursue, as I think a number of the journalists here in the audience will confirm. But the fact of the matter is, with the social media being what it is today, with the press and the 24-hour news cycle, it's very difficult to get away from it. But not only does the media focus on our successes, we have had a few failures. And I think having those failures exposed in the media also kind of helps focus our attention, helps us do a better job. So sometimes the criticism, the critique, the spotlight on us actually makes us better. But I take your point, sir. We don't ever want to get to the point where our sensitive tactics, techniques, and procedures are open for everybody to take a look at so that next time we come in on a target, we're exposed. Great point. Yes, sir.
Sir, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Dave Ahern, editor of Special Operations Technology. In the drawdown that is now occurring and going to occur in Afghanistan, we've also had a drawdown in Iraq. One of the effects of that is expected to be that special operators are going to be picking up the slack as conventional troops withdraw. So I was wondering, your predecessor, Admiral Olson, spoke of fraying at the edges and a concern about the personnel under your command. How do you ensure adequate dwell time and give people the rest they need, give them a break at a time when they're probably going to be facing increased demand for a very limited number?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've just spent the last 4 weeks on the road visiting all my component commands. And in fact, a number of my component commanders are here today, along with my Vice Commander, Lieutenant General Brad Heidholt. And I visited the 4 component commands. I started off Marine Special Operations, went from there to Naval Special Warfare, from there to USASOC, and then I just left last week with AFSOC. Took the opportunity to talk to all the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and in particular their spouses, and to get a sense of this fraying of the force. I think you're probably aware my predecessor, Admiral Eric Olson, initiated a pressure on the force task force about 10 months before he departed command. And this task force did a magnificent job of looking at the pressures on the force. They spent 10 months talking to over 7,000 servicemen, talked to 1,000 different spouses. They had 440 different meetings, talked to 50 different units, and they walked away with trends. And I will tell you, they were not statistics. They were really kind of trend lines based on an accumulation of concern from the spouses and from the commanders and from the service members. And the real issue was predictability. So frankly, when you talk to the spouses and you talk to the service members, they understood that they had a mission to do. They signed up to do that mission. They're happy to do that mission. They understand that we will continue to be engaged in Afghanistan from the special operations side for a while, at least until 2014, and they relish that mission. However, having said that, what has become hard for us is predictability. So most of them would tell you it's not necessarily about the boots on the ground, the bog dwell as we refer to it, the boots on the ground versus the dwell time back in CONUS. It really is about making sure that we can provide the commanders and the individuals a way to predict when they're going to be where. So, they want to know when they're going to be around for their son's birthday or their anniversary. And if we can improve predictability, which we think we can, and it sounds easy, but it's not as easy when you're talking about a 66,000-man force to be able to ensure you are predicting down to the individual. We can predict the units. We're very good at being able to tell you which unit is moving. The problem within SOF, of course, is individuals move among units, and now you've lost predictability for a particular individual or a group of individuals. Certain MOSs deploy more than other MOSs. So we've got to get a handle on the predictability piece, and that's something that we're actively pursuing. The other piece of this, and one of the things that we're working hard to get our hands on, is the stigma associated with coming forward when you have a problem. As I've told all my folks, you know, if you have been in this war for any period of time, the war has changed you. You have been fundamentally changed by the war. And people, you know, all different people react differently to that. So if a guy comes into, you know, the doc and says, hey, I've got a pulled hamstring, nobody thinks anything of it. If he comes in and he says, I've got emotional problems or I'm depressed, we have stigmatized that a little differently. And so we're working hard to reduce that stigma. We want people to be able to come forward when they have emotional problems, when they have spiritual problems, when they have physical problems, tell us about them, and we will do the very best we can to fix those problems irregardless of what they are. But this is not easy. You know, when you have a force of A++ personalities that came in because they are hard, tough men and women, and now you want them to come forward and expose themselves to you and expose their fears to you, that's not easy to do. But we have an obligation as leaders to ensure that we are kind of preparing the landscape so they can come forward, so they feel comfortable coming forward. So in my discussions with all the service members and their spouses, I encourage them, if they have problems, to come forward. And we're not going to pull their security clearances, and we're not going to affect their performance reviews. We're going to take care of them. And that is, I think, an exceedingly important message to send, and it's an important change to our culture. Because if we continue to fight, these problems will continue to manifest themselves, and unless we get out ahead of them, you know, we're not going to be able to solve them. So when we look at, now let me tie that to Afghanistan. I mean, I have no doubt that, you know, SOF will be, you know, probably the last folks to leave Afghanistan. I mean, that is at least the way we're planning. Whether or not that unfolds that way remains to be seen. I don't think we are going to dramatically increase our SOF footprint in Afghanistan. But we're certainly going to be there as long as the president needs us to be there. The good news is, with Iraq winding down, we have had some forces come back. We're able to control our bog dwell a little bit better. Our predictability is becoming better. So I think we can help the force from fraying any further and yet still meet our obligations in Afghanistan and elsewhere around the world. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks.
Brief comment. With regard to counseling the people, the key word is trust.
Trust, you got that right.
Hammer that. And if they don't trust you to do the things that enable them to stay in there and do what they've been doing and live another day, they ain't gonna be there.
Yeah, you know, and I,
Be effective.
yeah, the general's absolutely right. That was really one of the key themes that came out. Yeah. No, you're right. And it's, it has to start at the top. You know, the fact of the matter is, one of the reasons I went out to talk to the service members was they have to understand that the leadership, and I took myself, my wife, my command sergeant major and his wife, so that we could relate to the families. I mean, I've been married going on 34 years, and so you can kind of stand up there and say, look, we really do understand your concerns, and you need to know it starts here at the top. You can trust me, and I think General Vaught's point is well taken. You got to trust me. You got to trust folks like, you know, Mike Repass and Paul LaFavor. You got to trust folks that are in the leadership positions to do the right thing. And if you can convince them that you can do the right thing, and you've got to show it, you know, you can't just talk the talk. You got to walk the walk. You do that, then the force will line up behind you. Yes, sir. Or yes, ma'am.
Hi, Dana Priest from the Washington Post, and I
Dana.
wanted to follow up on General Vaught's question, but in a very different way, which
Okay.
is, given how much we've written recently about JSOC, I'm wondering if there's an active discussion about whether to officially acknowledge what they do.
Who?
With limits. And whether you think under your tenure we'll ever see that acknowledgement. And then I have a second question, which is very different, on Nigeria. Can you give us your assessment of what in the heck is going on there and whether SOF should and is playing a role?
Well, let me take the second question first, Dana. On Nigeria, obviously, that falls within Carter Ham's purview on the U.S. side as the Geographic Combatant Commander at AFRICOM. I can tell you General Ham and his staff look very, very closely at Nigeria day in and day out. We're concerned about Boko Haram, which is I would categorize them as the terrorist group that is creating all the havoc in Nigeria. Clearly, we have interests, national interests in Nigeria. So right now, we have no forces, no U.S. forces deployed to Nigeria in terms of going after Boko Haram. I mean, we have some folks, obviously, in the embassy, as we do most places. But it depends on, again, I would defer that question to General Ham, because he really is the guy on the U.S. side that will provide his military advice to the Secretary and to the President on where we need to go in Nigeria. On JSOC, right now we have no plans to expand any kind of public aperture, public awareness of JSOC. We don't think that's important. It seems to be important to journalists, but it really isn't important to us. The fact of the matter is we're going to continue to do our job, and folks will continue to write about us as they feel appropriate. But right now, no plans to open it up. Sir.
Good morning, General Larry Shaughnessy from CNN. Thank you for taking our questions this morning. Well, first, a quick follow-up to the points earlier about the media. The movie The Green Beret that you saw when you were young starred John Wayne. I don't think anybody would have confused John Wayne for an actual member of the Green Berets, but now there's a movie about to come out that's being marketed as starring actual SEALs. And I know that as a member of the media, we've always been cautioned not to show faces or identify active duty special operation forces for their own security, and I was wondering how you felt about that. And then I wanted to ask you about recruiting. If the end strength of services like the Marines and the Army are dropping, recruiting numbers are going to go down. Does that mean you have a smaller pool of candidates to choose from to fill your very important slots?
Yeah, I can take the second question first. The answer is yes. I mean, obviously, as the Army draws down and the other services draw down, our recruiting pool will be smaller. Having said that, the services have been working very, very closely with us to ensure that we meet our numbers. And it gets back to my kind of prepared remarks about our relationship with the services. I mean, one of the things that's hard to appreciate is the fact that when I look around the table at the service chiefs, with one exception, I've known them all for a very, very long time. And Ray Odierno and I have spent more time over the last couple of years than my wife and I have. I mean, it's, this is the relationship. Norty Schwartz is, a former AFSOC Air Force SOF guy. We have a great relationship with the Air Force. Jim Amos, the Commandant, and John Greenert as the CNO. I mean, these are personal relationships that become professional in nature as we start talking about the role and the relationship between the services, the general purpose forces, and SOF. So we can sit down at a table, have a great discussion, and it gets back to General Vaught's point, we trust each other. So when I come to them and say, I need to make sure that our recruiting numbers are what they ought to be, they've been very, very supportive in helping us in that regard. In terms of the movie, and frankly it ties into the point about recruiting, this movie was actually started about 5 years ago. It was initially started as a recruiting film so that we could help recruit minorities into the teams. And if you've seen the trailer, we think it accurately represents a number of the acts of valor, that is the name of the movie, Acts of Valor, that have occurred over the last 10 years with respect to the SEAL teams. And not just the SEAL teams. You'll see in there are special warfare combatant craft crewmen. There is the big Navy, the big Air Force. I mean, admittedly, it's focused on the SEALs, but it shows the support of the broader services. In terms of the actual actors, yes, there are SEALs, I think 8 of them, active duty Navy SEALs, that one of them may be out now, that participated in this. Again, it started off as a recruiting film, and they actually established a kind of SEAL recruiting, or a SEAL platoon to do the recruiting piece, which we do routinely. I mean, I go back to the movie Raise the Titanic, which very forgettable movie, I might add. But when I was a young ensign, I got tasked to help on the movie Raise the Titanic. We're conscious of the fact that there are active duty Navy SEALs in here. I can tell you they all volunteered. There was no concern on their part about their individual or security of their family. I think, the film will stand on its own merits. I'm not overly concerned. Again, the tactics, techniques, and procedures which we display, the The film company that produced this had a very collaborative effort with the Navy and with Naval Special Warfare Command and with U.S. Special Operations Command. So nothing we're displaying in there tips our sensitive tactics, techniques, and procedures. So again, great support and collaboration throughout the process. So while I am, I'm always cautious about when we do events like that, media events like that. Again, I think it's a balance between kind of showcasing our capabilities in hopes that we can keep up our recruiting goals, and hopefully this movie will continue to improve our recruiting efforts. And also, again, showcase a number of the acts of valor of the team guys over the last 10 years. Thank you. Daniel.
Morning, sir. Daniel Stewart from Naval Special Warfare Command. So you've spoken a lot about the SOF being the most educated force in DoD. Could you, in the spirit of this symposium, elaborate on that?
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. One of the pieces of guidance I gave my staff when we started talking about preserving the force. And preserving the force really for us is, as I said, it's a very holistic approach to doing business. So it's about taking care of them, physically, mentally, spiritually, and that spiritually is not necessarily religion, but it doesn't preclude that. Making sure we're taking care of the family. So there's kind of four, if you will, kind of cogs to this wheel. There is the physical, mental, spiritual, and the family, and they all have to kind of work together. And that is part of the process. But the other piece of this is making sure that we are building a force. As I've said, I would like to have the best educated force in the Department of Defense in the next 10 years. So I have tasked my staff, and in particular my Command Sergeant Major, who is, as we like to say, classically educated. He is a high school graduate, and yet is one of the most well-read individuals I know. We're on a plane, and Sergeant Major Ferris is reading Herman Hesse's Siddhartha and Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, and I'm watching Trunk Monkey videos. So there is a little, classically educated, I think, is probably a better approach. Having said that, what I have kind of charged the Command Sergeant Major with, along with the staff, is figuring out ways within their appropriate career paths to accelerate and improve and expand the number of enlisted bachelor's degrees we have, the number of enlisted master's degrees. How do we get more PhDs? Who is the next, Dave Petraeus, if you will, within the SOF community on the officer side? We've got a lot of work to do. There's policies we need to address. There are legislation we need to address. But a lot of this is just making sure that we can find time within their current service education requirements to expand and improve upon their broader education. Sir.
Admiral Dan Cable from Warfare Center Crane. Understanding the soft service talks, the OSD, SOCOM talks, could you talk about the collaboration and technology, the leverage of technology from the services in SOF, and then also your vision on science and technology?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. The S&T piece of this, the science and technology piece, obviously we are always looking to develop a kind of a comparative advantage, if you will, over the enemy. And I think it's important to have a comparative advantage not only over the enemy in terms of what technology do we bring to the fight that again, improves our speed, our element of surprise, but I think the conventional forces expect us to have a little extra magic as well. And sometimes that magic is technology. A lot of times that magic is just the incredible folks that we select and train and equip. But the technology is a very important part of this. And I think there are two levels that I look at. There is the level where that one E5 on the battlefield says, I've got a great idea. And he turns around and says, so how do I turn this great idea into something that the guys can use? And of course, we've been very successful at that. We have a great mechanism that E5, in that foxhole in Kandahar can come forward with a great idea. He puts pencil to paper, and we'll start moving out on that pretty quickly. And we've had a lot of good successes. And they're kind of tactical applications, but they've saved a lot of lives. Then obviously you've got the broader research and development on kind of some of the high-end platforms. So we look at, clearly our mobility is a very important part of who we are. If we can't get to the target, and if we can't get to the target clandestinely, and if we can't get to the target ready to fight, then we're not going to be of a lot of value. So we continue to put a fair amount of our research and development into platforms as well as into soldier systems, because once we get on the ground, again, we want that comparative advantage in night vision goggles, in general optics, and weapons systems. So as you know, Dan, better than anybody, I mean, we're putting a whole lot of effort both into our S&T and to our R&D, and we'll continue to do that. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Rebecca de Guzman. I'm a contractor. I support the Marine Corps. Where I sit, U.S. SOCOM is way out in front in terms of integration with interagency. So what would you offer guidance or advice to the services as we seek to strengthen integration with interagency?
Yeah, I mean, we are an interagency force. I will tell you, in my previous command, I made a point of highlighting how much we use the interagency, and that's all the three-letter agencies, you know, CIA, NSA, DIA, NGA, FBI, DOJ, all of the interagencies are part and parcel to what we do. I mean, we don't do an operation, any operation, indirect or direct, that doesn't have some sort of interagency participation. And we have strengthened the bonds very, very tightly, very, very strongly, I should say, really since 9/11. Some of this is just a function of the war. Some of it is a function of the war and the personalities. We've had magnificent support from all the senior leaders in the agencies. And part of it is when they collaborate with us, they know at the end of the day they're going to see a return on their investment in terms of somebody captured, a bad guy taken off the battlefield, additional research and development that might help them. So the interagency piece of this is absolutely crucial. My own organization, I have an interagency task force, the IATF we call it, and these are senior interagency folks, generally at the either GS-15 or SES level, and they advise me on a routine basis on what's happening within their agencies and how I can better support their agencies and what their agencies can do to support us. Now, some of this is a matter of scale. I mean, all the services obviously have interagency relationships, but for us in special operations, because our scale is smaller, it's easier to make and strengthen those relationships. We also have liaison officers out at all the agencies. So from SOCOM standpoint, all those agencies I named, I have, you know, soft badged guys that are in those agencies that are talking at the right level, that are allowing me to communicate through them to their agency head and vice versa. And again, that collaboration is invaluable. We are going to work hard, very hard, to continue to strengthen that over time, because we think that's the future, again, of how we're doing SOF. At the end of the day, it's not going to be a SOF operator that necessarily captures a bad guy. It will be a SOF operator that potentially provides or finds the intelligence that we pass through an interagency, a legat in a country that then passes that on to the host nation legal apparatus that then apprehends somebody. So that relationship has been very, very important to us. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for taking questions. I'm Christina Wong from the Washington Times. My question is, the Director of National Intelligence recently testified that al-Qaeda affiliates could pose more of a threat to the U.S. than core al-Qaeda, including al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, al-Shabaab. And my question is, will SOF supporting conventional forces in Afghanistan come at the expense of SOF's efforts in the African continent and other areas? And if so, how so?
Yeah, I think the short answer is no. I mean, the efforts in Afghanistan will not affect our efforts elsewhere. We have about 3,000 folks deployed outside Afghanistan right now that are working on all of those target threats, all those concerns you listed. And frankly, if we need to put more effort into that, we will. Again, this gets back to much of this is an interagency effort. Much of this is an effort that is supported by the geographic combatant commanders. So when you look at al-Qaeda in the Islamic lands of the Maghreb in North Africa, I mean, again, that is an AFRICOM responsibility. If you look at al-Qaeda in Yemen, that is a CENTCOM responsibility. So you have the General Purpose Force, the geographic combatant commander, who is focusing a lot of his resources on that as well. So it isn't just about SOF. We're an enabler to the General Purpose Force for a lot of those efforts, and we'll continue to do that. And when the GCCs come to me and ask for additional support, if we can make that happen, we absolutely will.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Irene, looks like we are peasy clean here.
Thank you so much. And thanks.